that.
Thinking they're the great.
I like the way.
Stay over with the
All
undershirt.
right.
Safer food.
I'd like to sit over there too.
Who are the guys with the mic? Is your insurance covered?
Okay, are we ready? Sunny, will you lead us in the pledge when it's
Certainly.
Thank you. Okay. Are we ready? Miss Bonnie, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, we'll call to order the
Different sitting over here. Weird.
Board of Commissioners special meeting for Wednesday, January 31st, 2018. We could rise for the pledge, please, led by Commissioner Wheelock.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Bonnie.
Johnson,
I am here.
Klaus,
Here.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Gorfulet. Here. Mayor,
Here.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Crawford.
Here. Now is our chance for first public comment. Bonnie, will you read the rules for us, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Do we have anyone for first public comment at this time? And I'll run it once. No? Okay. We will move on. The only thing on our agenda today is we have Mr. James Petrino from GovHR here to talk to us about ideas that he might have for a new county administrator search. And then when he's going to talk to us for a little bit, and then we'll kind of have a free discussion. I kind of wanted it to be kind of open, so as long as everybody doesn't talk over each other, we're just going to have a very open discussion about how we want things to go, kind of back and forth, okay? Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be back in the county. Wish I wasn't here for the reason I'm here for. But having said that, I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. I prepared based on feedback that I've received, reading the local press, also had an opportunity to talk to the interim county administrator a bit, and I prepared some thoughts on a process that could go forward. But I'd like to have time at some point for you to either tell me on the front end or the back end your ideas. Obviously, that's something that was very important to me the first time through this, and I would remain very open to that. So to the chair's point, if this can be a roundtable discussion, that's great. Interrupt me as I proceed. If you have thoughts or injections that are appropriate at that time, or do it at the end. I would like to have a conversation rather than a presentation. But I will start with the guarantee that we do offer, which you guys are all aware of from our original contract with the county. We guarantee our candidates for 2 years. If they leave for any reason whatsoever in those 2 years, we do the search fee for $0, and the only cost to the county is reimbursables for expense in advertising and travel. So that is the terms that we offer all of our clients, and we're committed to making sure that you have a candidate that you are satisfied with, that they're satisfied with, and you're moving forward. We don't have to exercise that guarantee very often. I think I shared that at the beginning. We're right in the 1% range, but it happens, and obviously that's why we're here this evening. I want to make it perfectly clear, I'm very open to feedback, suggested processes. What I've presented, what I prepared this evening is a blend of the process that we used last time with a blend of a recent county administrator search that I just completed, and found some options out of that process that I thought I would offer as a blend into the process we used last year. And we're always open to your suggestions. We would still use a 7-phase process. That 7-phase process is what we found works in our searches. Within those processes is where we can make adjustments for each client, or in this case, for research. I'll go through them quick on this slide, and then even quicker later, because you've seen some of the slides before, and I won't be redundant. If you recall, we did an interview. I interviewed a number of stakeholders at the beginning. We did a public survey. If everyone is content that I understood the county fairly well at that point, we can use that prior work and update it. Same with the position announcement and the recruitment brochure. If you wish to make any changes to those, that's perfectly fine. I would redistribute them for the board to have a time period to review it, make changes, or you could say, we captured that pretty well last time. We're ready to use this time to go into the search and maybe spend some more time on the recruitment phase and the interviewing phase. If we are content with the first two, I've laid out a timeline that we're not, again, to reinforce once again, this timeline or any of these suggestions is kind of coming at you cold with only a minimal understanding of your desire on a redo of the process. We could advertise very soon. We could take a 6-week advertisement period, recruiting candidates. Again, we would do a national recruitment. We would then take 2 weeks to do the evaluation and screening. I'll touch that in a second. And then in April and May is when I'm seeing that we could come back here for recommended candidates in an interview process, which I will go into more detail. Just as a quick reminder to where we've been, we did our survey of our community. We used those responses when we came up with our recruitment brochure, as well as the individual interviews. Again, I would send back to you the recruitment to make sure that the advertisement and the brochure itself is still satisfactory, or receive any changes you would like. We used a process that focused on a number of criteria: financial, relationships, strategic growth, team-oriented, and communication. Those were the criteria that we kind of laid out last time. I would need to know up front, has significant things changed in the last 6 to 8 months, or are those qualities still what you view as most important as you go through your next search? Again, from where we were, we received 45 applications before. We whittled it down to an interview of 3 through the process that I'm sure you'll all recall on the back end after we got the candidate applications. I would propose that phase 4, this is the evaluation and screening. This is the part that GovHR does behind the scenes, where we receive, where we have Skype interviews, where we go through the different aspects of researching the candidate. This part would be the same. We can deliver different information back out to the commission if you would like, but this part is pretty much part of our standard process, behind the curtain work that we do on the evaluation and screening. But an important piece to that is to again agree that those criteria we set in that recruitment brochure is what we're going to be asking the questions for, even on the background Skype interviews. We would bring back recommended candidates. So up to this point, we're running pretty parallel with what the system was last time. And we would have a conversation about a group of candidates. We would set that number through conversation with myself and the commissioners. It's going to be some number that's larger than what we want to interview, but reasonable that we can discuss, whether that's 8 or 9, in that range usually. This is where I'm starting to change, possibly based on feedback that I think I've read. I would say that we definitely want to do a 2-round person interview, or a 2-round interview, person to person. We actually had that in the process last time, and at some point as we were evolving, we went to a single interview with the finalists. I think it's important that we do grab those candidates twice, and that you have an opportunity to see them once and then see them again. So if we can get down to 4 to 5 candidates from that 9, have an interview, we would again prepare questions. We can ask those questions. We can allow for more follow-up if the board would like, and we can inject our follow-up on those questions with an effort to get to about 3. And we can develop our next round based on the results of that first round of interviews. A second round, which was recently used is a 2-day process that I think could be implemented here if it's a direction that the board would like to go. One, we can offer an evening session, a public forum, where the public can come and the public can hear questions and answers of the candidates. In this case, what we would do is I would ask questions of the candidates would respond. The public would have an opportunity to write a question or two, or as many as they'd like, on cards that would be brought up and given to me. I would then, after the concluding of the standard questions, ask questions from the audience, making sure that they're applicable and appropriate, but allowing in a maybe a more public, relaxed setting, that candidate to interact with the public, for you to be there and see how that candidate interacts in a less formal setting. And we can also offer a little bit of time for meet and greet afterwards, so that individuals you and the public that attends can have just a little bit more time with the candidates. We also would collect feedback cards from anyone that attended that's willing to provide us the feedback that we would categorize, we would put in some report, so that the next day you would have that public feedback that we collect during that meeting. We can also offer a tour of the county to those individuals, which sometimes is important. Using a 2-day process really opens us up to being able to have that candidate in the afternoon if they desire to have a tour of the county, which if they're from not in the area, sometimes is of value. Day 2, you would get a feedback from the community forum, and then you would have a formal interview, again with those candidates. So those final 2 or 3, or how many ever we come out of that 5 with, you would have your formal interview. Questions can be asked by the commissioners, questions would be asked by me. We would have much more information on these candidates potentially based on interview 1 and the forum that I could bring back that can then spur additional questions. This process could be implemented for your county in a way that hopefully you have a little bit more time with the candidates than the process we used the first time through. I think having the numbers that we had last time, the 45 applications and the whittling down that we had on that one slide, I actually don't see that would change that much. I would hope that our candidate pool is about the same numbers, but it will be different individuals, obviously. Obviously, people are in a much different place than they were 8 months ago. So we may have a few of the same apps. It's likely we'll have a lot of different apps. We'll just have to see how those numbers come in. And we work our hardest to find the best candidates to bring, but at the end of the day, we're relying on folks to submit the application, and we will bring forth the candidates that best fit your description of needs. I think I jumped all of these slides that are coming up. I described the community forum. I described the second round interviews. Oh, one thing that there's many ways for public bodies to discuss candidates, and you guys actually did a very nice job last time in your final discussion of the final candidates to reach consensus. Those decisions sometimes are difficult to have, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll offer a score sheet that can be tallied for individuals and then redistributed to start your conversation. I mentioned that just as a tool because we recently used it in another community where the board wished to have more information together about what each other was thinking before they engaged in a public discussion about the candidates themselves. It worked well for them. I'm simply touching on some of the tools that maybe in some of the recent recruitments were utilized that you may have interest in. And last is appointment, and this slide is unchanged from what we had offered prior. We will assist in any way you direct us to assist in bringing the candidate to fruition at the county with an agreement. And of course, we handle it professionally. All the notifications to anyone that was interested in the position are informed of the direction of the county.
Go ahead, whatever.
Where would you advertise that you didn't advertise the last time?
We were pretty thorough in where we advertised last time.
Because we only got responses from 14 states, and there's 50 of them out there, so.
I think that's fair. I also think that this is a position that is likely going to attract regionally, in the Midwest particularly. I think it will, particularly the coasts, the pay ranges for county positions and city positions of this size aren't in the pay ranges that we can offer in the Midwest.
But there are people in those areas that may want to come here that know that they will take less money. Maybe they've been living on the coast and they want to get back home, kind of thing. So
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that we're hitting all 50 states.
And we are hitting, the advertisement we did last time was ICMA, the International City County Management Association, which definitely hits all 50 states and beyond in their publications. And that's probably the number one place that we're getting hits, that anyone's getting hits outside of the state. We did do focused advertising here in Michigan. I believe we also did it in Ohio for the county publications and the city publications in those two states. We can go beyond to other states for the added cost, and you just have to add that value. I think if you're hitting ICMA, though, if somebody is looking, they are looking consistently at that site.
But who's looking? The persons that are looking are people that are in that, I mean, part of what we had described in our characteristics was not someone who necessarily had a big, long history in government. So it sounds like that publication is geared towards people who work in city and county government. So that's my concern, is that by not advertising in a more broad way, we're not maybe capturing, like we had a retired military person. He wouldn't be looking in ICMA. We want retired university people. I mean, I would like us to look broader, rather than just government.
I think that's very fair, and we can do that a little bit more. We have found success, and I know we can tag different things like military experience, public administration degrees through LinkedIn, so that folks, it's not we probably are getting, and it grows with each search, more and more of our candidates are coming towards us from LinkedIn. So while I stressed ICMA and the public publications, I think I can certainly research, Commissioner, how better to utilize LinkedIn to hit tags that maybe we aren't always clicking for our municipal clients.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Oh, on that same note, what about the Michigan Municipal League, or the national version of that, or the National Association of Counties?
All of those were hit.
Okay.
In your last round of advertising.
What about creating news, like taking a news approach, like a press release, to see if people would pick it up as a news item, like the Cranes publications in Detroit, business publications, essentially like a big city version of the Traverse Ticker. That's pretty appealing way of spreading news.
We could work with the county to try a press release approach. I'm not certain how many outside of this area are going to pick it up as a press. We have done advertisements in some of the public, MLive, for instance, if that would be of interest. We could certainly add those. Those get costly, and I know when you're making the most important hire decision that you want, we don't want to focus too much on cost, but there is how many folks are really looking at those publications also for these opportunities. Cost, eyeballs looking at it, and then the people that you want.
Yeah, that's why I was
We
thinking
can certainly provide MLive, Cranes, those publications.
That's why I was thinking of news, because it wouldn't be paid advertising.
Sure, and a press release, and you can hope, if it's slow, we can hopefully get it picked up.
Yeah. People might think it's negative that we're missing department heads in certain places, but it might actually be an attraction for some people who are motivated by the idea that they'll be the person in charge and they'll be helping to make those decisions on what our direction is in different departments, because it could be seen as a very positive opportunity versus a negative, as it might be portrayed locally. It could be seen as, the opposite way. And then to reveal, how many of them there are, or what our vision for replacing them is, would give somebody greater insight into where we're coming from, which they might be able to read on their own, but they might not read it from a positive point of view. So kind of turning that around, making good news out of that.
Well, certainly a local press release outlining a vision, I think is a very good idea.
I have a question. Could you give us all a sense of, you talked about the behind-the-scene process that you engage in once all the applications are received, and I know that for some of us, that's where there were some concerns, because we want to know who's applying.
Sure.
We want to know who's out there. We want to know, you're going to use your expertise to see if the criteria that we've given you are in those people, but,
Well, I guess in my mind, if I could add on to that, is, we had 45 applicants. It was narrowed down to about 9, I think, that we actually in fact seen. And at least in my mind, when I read those packets for those 9, there was such a drop-off after about number 4 or 5. The other 4 probably didn't even need to be sent to me in the first place. So, that's my concern. If we go through all this process over again, and, we truly only get 2, maybe 3 candidates that are worthy of being interviewed, per se. I'm not saying that those other 42 people that applied don't have qualifications, but at least based on the information that we were provided with, it just didn't come through that they were viable candidates, if you will. So I guess my concern is, what are we going to do differently this time that may make that, I guess in an ideal world, I'd like to see you, say, look, we got 45 applications. These 10 people could do your job, or 15 people could do your job. And then let us look at those 15 people. I felt that the last go-round, the pool that was actually afforded to us had gotten very small by the time it got to us. Now, that's not to say that, there truly were actually very qualified people that got sorted out. We took a little beating from some of the public about the fact that, we didn't have an HR professional helping with the process. Well, I could have swore that's what we were paying GovHR for, was to be our HR professional in that regard, but certain individuals didn't read it that way, so.
Well, we did get, I think we did get most of the candidates in that scoring system he had, 4-star, 5-star, and that, and I agree that there was a definite drop.
Oh, it was huge.
The talent, I guess, if you will. And I know I wasn't alone when I first looked at the resumes for what we had, and I wasn't, nothing knocked my socks off right away. And that's not to say, they weren't qualified or anything else, but it just didn't grab you. So hopefully, you hit it right there, expand that search, to get it outside of just the typical areas. But I think also, it's just us getting more involved this time.
I think I'd like to see the pool that comes to us to be a little bit bigger.
much bigger.
And let us have a discussion about those, and we always get into the playing the game, well, this person doesn't want their name out there yet, or this or that, but, unfortunately, in today's world, I can redact their name, but as soon as I put where they've ever worked before, then somebody's gonna know that by the time
That's what
I
I
get
did.
out of this room, so.
And if I may interject at that point, you summarized it very well. A pool of 45, and there were 10 that could meet most of the criteria that we had set out, and of those, it became very clear that there was about 5 that really had the experience and then we were able to have a conversation to get to 3 interviewed. We will do our best to, instead of that number being 10, for that number to be 14. And I'd love to give you a binder of 14 that I say, these are worth your time. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do more because of your time, but they're worth your time in the sense that there's not that significant drop off. At some point, there's going to be 2 ledges. The ledges that it just can't step up to this position, and then the ledge that maybe they could if they had a shot, and that's the 10 that we usually get. And in our experience, we're not going to get significantly more than that number, and I appreciate we're going to expand our advertising a bit further. We may get a couple more than usual, but to think that we're going to get to the 15 number or much beyond the 10 number, I don't want to tell you that that's what I can do, and I think that it's hard to find these positions. And I'm only speaking from other experience, not just what I've seen for you guys. There's only, I think I looked it up earlier, there's only 20 counties in Michigan between 50,000 and 150,000 people. And you extrapolate that out to other people looking for jobs in other parts of the United States. There's not many of these people that are qualified to run an organization as large as yours, whether they have government background or not, and are willing to go through the public process to do so. So when we recruit outside of the local government area, which we've done, there tends to be a lot of concern mostly over the publicness, understanding the publicness of the position and understanding the publicness of the interview process. And we get folks to stay with us, but oftentimes they say, for the size of organization and for the amount, maybe I'm not going to do that process. It's the local government folks that tend to understand, I understand that's the process, and I'm going to go through it, and I have the qualifications, and I've been where I need to be. That's all really long-winded to say. We'll do the best we can, but I'm not going to say we can get more than what we had last time in terms of, we're going to get different ones that you may like the qualifications better. I'm certain that's a potential. But I don't think numerically we can drive much further.
Well, what about our ability to look at all of the candidates? Because again, I just have a challenge with having somebody else substitute their judgment for Dan's judgment, because Dan's been doing what he's been doing for a long time, and Dan.
Pardon? You have judgment?
I said, I have trouble with someone else substituting their judgment for your judgment, because you've been doing what you've been doing a long time. I know you've probably hired and fired a lot of staff over the years. Is that fair?
Sure.
And so you know what you're looking for when you go to hire somebody, right? I mean,
we're
you have
7
some
different
criteria in your mind, and you you judge the intangibles, like, how they make, the vibe they give you or whatever. You can't do that with an application, but the point is that, you describe this behind the screen process, the great and terrible Oz, and it's like, we end up with, what's left, and we don't get to see what's behind the screen. And I'm not demeaning at all what you do, but I'm saying you substitute your judgment for ours. We give you the criteria. The people who apply presumably think they meet the criteria, because nobody's going to go through the process of applying for a job if they don't think they've got, some of the, it's just too much hassle, So, I mean, some obvious are, they're just throwing a dart out and hoping something sticks. But, if you get 45 applications, I have to believe there's at least 25 of them that are people who are hitting criteria. So for us to only get 10 to 14, I mean, there's another 10 or 12 that we're never even going to see what they had. So is there some way for us to see more before you give us this little pool?
Yes, I need to think through, I mean, a piece of this is when I need to go to the candidates, all of them, 45, let's presume, or let's say it's 20, and the second 10 of that 20 don't meet the minimum qualifications that we've set for this position, but for some reason are better than the other 20 that we aren't going to proceed with. I'm going to go to those 20 and tell them all we are now going to publicly announce your candidacy for this. And some of the candidates, those that are most seasoned, are certainly going to ask how many candidates are in that pool. And when you say 20, they say, is that really a risk I want to take at the community I'm at and managing right now? If it was something less than that, 8, 10, ones that I think we can reasonably get to, they may be more serious about it. We can do that. I am open to it. I also think we can work with your legal counsel potentially if you're open to looking at these, the paper-only candidate applications without having conversation about them or decision-making processes on an interview, in an interview way, where some of that information could be had without necessarily at a public meeting. It may be a public document that somebody could FOIA. We can work through some of that. I mean, you could certainly look at all 45, but all 45 will be made aware that that's the part, that's what we're going to do. And I just have concern that it is very easy to say, if you really want the job, you're not scared. If you really want the job, you'll stay in the process and go through it. Well, if you really care about where you are and think you want to move up in career and want to take a risk to go to a bigger county or a different county, but really want to keep your relationships at home, you're going to want to weigh that. And I'm comfortable either way. I just know that some good candidates will say, it's a problem we have right now in recruiting. They want to stay with the elected bodies they know than the ones that are a risk to them. But I would commit to you this evening that I will work with you, I will work with the chair and the board to try and figure out a process that makes you more comfortable with the candidates beyond, let's call it the minimum, the 10.
That's not enough.
I really don't think you'll get more than 10 that really are probably worthy of looking at.
Well, last
I'd be shocked if we did
Well,
personally.
last time we had 9.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
just don't.
Last time we had 9, and that wasn't enough.
Well, yeah, but expanding it, if you have a pool of 45 and you, like I said, you don't have 9 good ones, saying we want to look at 20 is not going to increase that.
I didn't want to look at, I wanted to see their stuff. I don't want to see them. I want to just look
But I
at the
thought
documents.
we did last time.
Well, we did. So James, what would be the possibility of getting the resumes out on how we did it last time, where they're out there and we can go look at them?
Well, I guess
But they don't become our possession
Right.
in paper, but we can go look at them the way that you had them before you whittle it down.
Right.
So that
See,
each
last-
commissioner can call you and say, out of these, I like these. And then, because we're 7 people, and Cheryl's right, I mean, and while your judgment is excellent, 7 of us have 7 different ideas, some are similar, some are not, about the kind of person that we're looking for. So if you had that feedback from us, 45 resumes, and you give us a few days to look through them, and we can call you and say, well, James, I like this one, this one, this one, and this one. And Cheryl liked 3 of those, but 2 different ones, and,
Because the last time we got them, but we'd already
But it was
made our
after.
selection. And
Yeah,
it was
after.
impossible.
What we need to
change.
figure out is how far in this process does the open documents and all that play into? How can we?
At what point can we see
How
the
can we
stuff?
look at the group?
Yeah.
Because I completely understand that concern, but how can we look at them as a group, at the whole thing? I agree too, if you want to look at them all, look at them. But
what
how
point
can
do
we
they
do
become our
that and
possession?
then decide at some point, all right, this is who we want to interview, and at that point, it can become public.
Right.
I don't want to keep anything from the public, but it's also a
It's
lot
all
of information.
protecting the people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think,
I would like the opportunity to work with your legal counsel and their comfort level. My comfort level is much less important at what that line is. And if different legal counsels from different communities or different municipalities have different lines. And your legal counsel was really great to work with last time in terms of the redaction that we did, which we don't usually do, in terms of how things were handled there. So I'm confident they will provide the best counsel to get to what the commission would like.
yeah, one way of reframing it so that you could score it essentially to people who have less than, the average qualifications to the average, to the above average, is to use the federal HR method of KSA, the knowledge, skill, and ability. And you could just show us on a grid basically where everybody falls after the applications are all turned in, and basically take care of some of the fears that somebody's missing something.
I think the system we used last time, Commissioner, is similar to that, and I don't think we got to addressing the concern I'm having by using that system. So I appreciate the suggestion, but using that methodology is not dissimilar to the STAR methodology that was used to get to seeing 5 and 4 stars only. So that's...
Go ahead, Dan.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to make a decision tonight to
We
go
can.
with Jim one way or the other?
We can, we don't have to.
We don't have to.
No.
And are we going to discuss this amongst ourselves and have him sit down?
We can.
Okay, and,
We can do anything you like.
okay.
I want to make sure everybody is heard and everybody, we
Yeah.
know what everybody would like in the process.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You know, I think part of the problem, that we ran into the last time is, we started with a pool of 45. We had maybe 9 that met the minimum qualifications, but we had about 5 that actually, we had some feeling that could do the job, and then the pile dropped off really fast. And I think that's where we're at. Unfortunately, I'm not real encouraged that it's going to be any better 6 months later. I've been trying to hire welders for a month. I know exactly what that's all about. And you hire people that on paper look like everything should be great, and it's not always great.
Well, and that's where we need to commit to, and I thought we talked about at the last meeting, that we're not going to settle. That if we go through this and the candidates we get aren't what we think we need, then we'll, go through it again.
Absolutely.
So,
We'll have to do it again.
That's
I like the process of the community meeting. I like having a second round. I like all that because it does give us more time to meet the candidates and talk with them. So.
I'd like to address that. I think we just spent a lot of time on letting you see that second piece of candidates, and I'm confident that I pulled out the best ones, so I'm not the best one to comment on that, but let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt and say 2 more comes out of that. The more important point is what you just hit on. If you're not satisfied with the 4 or the 5 that actually bubble up, because we're going to probably get to those generally consensus-wise, then you extend the application period. Then you have more time for other individuals to see the ad. We run it again. People change their place in life, and until you're content with how long you can. I can't say how long a community can go without. And I know last time there was some concern in terms of making sure we hit some certain times. And if there's less concern there, that's good for the process. But I'm not going to discount, you need 1, right? You need 1. I'm not going to discount that our first round will get 10 good ones, 5 interviewable, 3 for a second interview, and get you the best candidate. I'm not going to discount that at all. I believe that process can be followed and will be followed. But if that 9 to 5 you don't feel real comfortable about, we can extend that timeline.
Go ahead.
I think that is maybe where we might have slipped up. Part of it in the past is that we were in such a rush to fill that position, and I was part of that. I think we have to slow down this time, and each one of us, and I'm talking about myself as much as any of you, work hard at this time. I personally feel that somewhere along the way, we should use some experienced professionals in our community. Once we get the candidates that we're serious about, to help us ask questions, the second and third deeper questions. Yes, it's true, we've all hired a lot of people in our life. but I don't think any of us, this is a budget we've got, we've got, what, 500 employees, $100 million budget, 40 of it we manage, but it's still a great big budget. I feel like we've let down our employees and we've let down our community in not doing this right. So, and I also think if we involve the community more and well up some community support, that we're going to get better candidates because they're going to feel our enthusiasm and our intent. So I know that the board still will always have the power to choose. But we've got some very valuable people in this community that have hired those types of people before and have the skills to ask the deeper questions. I think we should tap into that. And I'd like, is Jean Drancy here?
No?
She stepped out.
Oh, I was hoping she would, did she discuss the matter in which they hired Dennis Aloya last time?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'd like to have her tell that story about that they took a year to find the Dennis Aloya. And and part of the process was they were down to 2 or 3 candidates, and they invited them all and had kind of an open house, and they invited their families as well. And, you know, you need to know that their families are committed to them and that they're coming too. That we're, because, am I wrong in saying that?
Well, there's a fine line, though, in asking about any family situations when you do interviews
You don't
and
have to
everything
ask
else.
about them, just invite them.
But yes, you could invite them, but if
Yeah.
you're using that as a basis for determination, there can be some legal issues, unfortunately, for that.
Well, then he can help us with that.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think we need more community involvement and enthusiasm. We need to, I don't mean this as an insult to anybody here. I respect all of you. Humble ourselves and get some help in interviewing these patients, these candidates. And, you know, I heard, I wasn't here for the last meeting, but the bar that we want is that we all 7 enthusiastically support whoever we pick. It'll help me to do that if we bring in some pros to help us ask the deeper questions.
Well, and I think we may be able to do that in that community forum. Invite the community leaders that
Specifically
you
invite those
you advise
leaders
their
that you're
opinion,
talking
and the way
about.
he's described that, bring them to that, and they can help score too, and give a report, if you will, or their comments. So
I think the public forum will help us significantly.
Yes.
It will help us, it will help our community to be more supportive of the decision.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing. You know, another thing that we are in a situation where we weren't 8 months ago is we have qualified people in our HR department. You know, we didn't have that when we went through this the last time. So, you know, that's a big piece of it too. You know, I think we need to involve, you know, we had the issue the last time about who the contact person at the county was. You know, we have an HR department. Let's let the HR department be the contact for James. You know, we dealt with, Carol got some of it, Chris Kramer got some of it, and it went back and forth. You know, we now have HR professionals in our HR department, which should be able to help us through some of this process also. But, you know, I'm certainly in favor of the community forum idea. You know, and, you know, I don't want us to say we settle. I think we made a good choice, you know, and the circumstances changed, period, you know. And it's none of my business what changed in the circumstances or whatever, but circumstances changed, and now we're back doing this all over again. So I'm all in favor of doing this. I think probably the idea of a community forum, you know, you alluded to the Dennis Aloya thing. You know, Rothschild's announced to us a year before he was leaving that he was going to go, and we started the process. And it was kind of slow in the beginning, you know, and then we hired a firm to come in and help, you know. In fact, you know, James's company is kind of a descendant of that firm, you know. So I think that all worked out okay. We brought, I believe we ended up bringing 7 candidates for interviews, if I recall. And then that evening after the first round of interviews, we did a little meet and greet thing over at Medalley Park. Roger Slottick grilled burgers and some few things, and you know, we just had a lot of informal discussion, which between the candidates, between their families, you know, many of their families were represented, and I think that was a good thing for us. And then we came back in the following day or something and actually did another round of interviews.
Could we do that again?
Absolutely, we can do that again. You know, I think the biggest piece here, and the tough piece for James, is to try to figure out what we want and what the community wants, because that's the tough piece. Because when we did this, you know, with Dennis, you know, on the first ballot that went around, with the same 3 names were on all 9 commissioners' votes. You know, the same 3 people of the 7 people we interviewed, the same 3 names were on all 9 of us. The second ballot, we'd selected an administrator. You know, so we were, at least the idea in my mind was we were all looking for the same thing. I hope that's the same thing today, but I don't know if it is. You know, we all come at things from different directions and different mindsets, so we have to make sure that we are in fact ready for that. You know, the process we used when we hired David Benda after Dennis left was much shorter. You know, kind of a little bit of both. You know, in the process we did with Tom Menzel was very short again. You know, and so you know, it's been nearly 20 years since we actually did this whole thing on a blown out scale where we involved the community and everything else for that. So I think it's going to be a different thing for all of us, and I think our community has changed. You know, I think we get a lot more involvement from our community if we ask it. You know, unfortunately, some of the involvement we get, we might be better off without, but we're still going to get it, and we have to listen to it. So I do believe the public forum is a great idea, and if it means, you know, ideally in my mind, I'd like to see us be bringing in 5 candidates for that first round in the public forum, and then probably not the next day come back with 2 or 3 finalists for another interview process. I don't see us doing the back-to-back day thing unless we've really truly got it down to these are our 3 candidates. You know, if we're looking at 5 or 6 candidates that we want to bring in and do the first round of interviews and do the public forum with, I don't see us being able to say, okay, you did great today, but you're not invited back tomorrow. I don't think that's fair either. So
If I may just, Sonny, I apologize for interrupting, just to clarify that the suggestion was to have 5 or 6 interviewed, and if there's 3 or 4 or whatever that number is that you're really comfortable from those 5 or 6, those would be asked for the 2-day.
okay.
Public forum,
There is a disjunct between the 5 or 6 and then the final round of interview.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good
Dan,
with
go
that.
ahead.
I just been thinking about this. You know, this is so important. It's as important as the college president. It's as important as the president of the hospital or the head of our schools. We've got to get this right this time. And I'm worried about our employees because I'm sure they feel all shook up. So we have to let them know we're going to put our hearts into this and get it done right. I think we should take the time it takes. Be willing to take a year. I mean it. I don't know what the rush would be.
When you
I
say
don't
it's
think it will.
When you say it's going to take a year, the undersheriff's having a coronary over there in the corner.
I don't think it will, because
I know
even
he can
though-
take it, and I know he's a tough guy.
Dan,
so-
even looking at, say, the end of May, it may sound like that's quick, but we've got a month and a half already knocked out because of the brochures and all the other stuff that's already in place. And that would have added a lot more time. I'm comfortable right now
I'd
with the
like the
timeframe.
idea
I'm
that
good
we've
with the
got a
time.
longer advertising period,
Yeah.
and we already have the stuff in place. You know, at least in my mind, I'm more than happy to look at it again, but I thought they did a great job
Yes.
with the brochure and describing Grand Traverse County and selling Grand Traverse County. I thought they did a great job with that piece of it, and that's already prepared, so.
And we are committed that we're all seven going to pick this person.
Well, we'll
right?
do our best. I mean, it still
We're
could
gonna
be, you know, it could still be 4-3. You know, hopefully it
guess.
won't be.
Yeah.
I don't think it,
I don't think we can make some
Yeah.
pact that it's going to be 7-0. All we can do is
We
do our
just
very
wish
best.
for it.
Well, we
I
can do our
wish-
best.
yeah, and do like we said before, that even if it is 4-3, everybody's gonna support him or her, and I felt like we did, you know? So
I would like to just say, you know, I don't think we need to put an arbitrary timeline on this. You know, James came up with a suggested timeline. You know, at the end of the 6 weeks, we're hopeful that he's going to have a nice fat pool of candidates for us. If he doesn't, he's going to come back and tell us, and we're going to have to extend that, which extends
Yes.
everything else.
nothing's in stone.
And I will share this only to reinforce what you said. And we have a meeting next week with a client that we've been out for 6 weeks, and my advice to them is we need a few more. I'm very comfortable with that. I am confident we will advertise everywhere we can. I am confident we will present this county in the best light that's possibly. And there's still just timing of when candidates are available to come here as your next administrator. And I'm comfortable with that, staying there.
I like your new approach. I think that starting with us and then
Both
going to the
Tom and Linda.
2-day, I think that that's good. I think it's a really well thought out plan. As far as the questions, I just had a question about the questions that you would be asking the candidates. I wasn't wild about the questions the last time.
That we asked, or?
No,
that
the
they-
question, you know, the questions that they were given in advance, and they all answered the same questions.
Oh, yeah,
Number
that's-
one, we're definitely never doing that again, but number two, you know, did we submit possible questions to you, or did you generate the questions? I can't remember how that
The
worked.
answer to that is yes and yes. I received questions from commissioners, and then we had generated questions. I will say that if we go forward with the blended process that I presented, you won't see a lot of different questions on that first interview that we may have with the candidates. We can tweak them, I can bring in other things, but there's only so many different questions and ways you can ask how your financial acumen is, what type of team building you would have in your community, how do you engage the public into the business of the community. There's 17 questions that you're going to ask, and we can ask them in lots of different ways about involvement and local government and being involved with the community. But what it does is the next time when we bring them back, we can be much more nimble in our question making based on the answers we heard before. You know, and we may ask the same question of 2 or 3 candidates based on answers that we heard from each of them. You know, we heard you say last time, or we heard a candidate say last time this. We'd like you to react to it now. That's also the benefit of having the public forum and hearing them on, those are going to be more standard questions too, because we want the public to hear kind of the standard of what this person is and what they stand for. But the next day, we can carry that knowledge into this meeting to ask more refined questions back and forth, if you will.
Okay.
Tom, and then Dan had a
Okay.
comment.
Bob, I feel as a board, we're more together, more united on this topic than we were last summer when we did it before. I feel that way. I don't know if everybody does. And Dan, I know you bring up committees or, you know, additional help from the outside, but I really think that the public forum can address that. If individuals, we invite them, maybe by name, you know, to ask them to try to make that event, that would be the way to handle that. It's sort of like a compromise of the Blue Ribbon Committee idea.
Yeah,
But-
I could
yeah.
accept that. You know, especially if I could if we could encourage some of our very experienced people to ask questions.
Yeah, but another thing that James mentioned is that there's a cost to the advertising, and I feel kind of strongly that we should advertise over a broader area. I also like the news idea, which doesn't have a cost to it. It's not that difficult to create a press release. Whether people accept it or not is, we don't know. But another thing that I've looked at is, back on the 19th, we had 4 jobs closed for applications in HR, and one of those was for a deputy county administrator, which is being put on hold because that hire should be done by the county administrator. But when you look at the top end of the salary ranges, that, for example, what we paid Vicky Uppel, and what the top range is for the deputy, it's too close. And we need to take a look at that and readdress that before we put the offer out or the advertisement out, I think. It's just within a few $1,000s, actually, the top end of both jobs. And those are not the equal jobs at all. So I think that we need to take a look at the offer before we just copy it and send it out this time.
Dan?
That's interesting. Gene, how long did it take to pick Dennis Saloya, do you think?
Yeah, we got to hear you. Sorry.
It's been a while, Dan, so I cannot remember.
Okay.
The process was at least 4 to 5 months.
Okay. Wasn't rushed, though, right?
No, it wasn't rushed because, as Sonny indicated, he gave a year's notice.
Okay.
So we knew the process and knew when we wanted to have him in to be able to work with Ross for a while as well.
I think we were about 8 months total, start to finich, from the time Ross
Start to
told us
finish. I meant the
until we
interview
hired him.
process,
Right.
when they got that and when he came in.
Do we need to, they just brought up a good point, do we need to decide now if we need an assistant administrator?
That would be, I think that would be the next administrator's
Yeah,
decision.
let them-
Decision?
That's their decision, not ours.
It's in the budget right
It
now,
is.
so the only way we could modify that would be to alter the budget.
It's budgeted for.
It's budgeted for.
I'm just thinking stupidly, you could pay a dandy administrator more if you didn't have an assistant administrator, so.
We need that this shows exactly that we need that assistant
We need a
administrator
continuity
position.
of
We need the
government.
depth.
I've always thought that the administrator position was woefully underpaid here. If you go in the outside industry for the amount of people they're looking over, they're making a lot
So
more
you're
money. So
saying-
I imagine you could probably speak to that, but the price may be hindering also.
Well, see, and that's the question that, getting back to what Tom said a minute ago. I understand how close the deputy and the administrator are.
Yeah.
Is the problem, is the deputy's getting paid too much, or is it the administrator's getting paid too little?
Right.
I think the
You know,
administrator's paid too little.
So if that's something that we're willing to talk about, we should talk about that before we
Yes.
send James out
Yes.
to advertise this position again.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's
Because
the,
if that number's at we were paying Vicky at 130,
The top
you know.
was 135.
That was what we advertised before, I believe.
135 was the top.
Right.
So we're gonna have X number of dollars.
So the question becomes, are we in a position to talk about whether that job should be
150?
to a maximum, I don't know. Is the number 150? Now, does it make a significant difference in the quality and the number of candidates that I have for this job if I advertise it to 150 compared to when I was advertising it at 137?
I think you'll
Yeah.
get more applicants.
What do
Absolutely.
you think, James?
yeah, we don't need to feel obligated to pay at the top of the range.
Certainly not,
Yeah.
but it might get,
But if you expand the range, that at least gets the interest.
is that,
So what you're saying is.
I guess maybe my question to you, James, you do this more often than I do, but sure. A community of our size, what would the standard salary range for this position be? Is there such a thing?
It varies, certainly. You are a 100,000 person municipality, you're a county. There's not a lot of those, so you have to comp to that. But The 130, 137, 140, 145, that area seems, and I'm going by gut, and I will do a little research again. I know I pulled the comps last time when we talked. That feels like the right range. The largest county in Michigan with a hired administrator is at about 170 on a new hire. So they're considerably more than you guys in terms of both population, budget, and pay. But that's kind of the top administrator wage for Michigan counties for a hired administrator. But you guys are in that kind of next step where we want folks that are maybe making 100 right now or 120 right now. That's kind of our target range where we want them to step up or step over into one. But having said all that, and I probably rambled a little bit too much there, I didn't hear wage come back from folks that I was recruiting with as a reason that they weren't going to apply. So for those individual phone calls that we make and say, hey, you're the deputy at so-and-so and such, would you like to be the administrator? It was many reasons, like where I'm at, one, I have a different trajectory, whatever those things are. Wage did not, sometimes that comes across loud. It didn't come across loud here. But the numbers can drive folks that I may never see away.
Well, I was going to say, you don't know who
didn't
didn't
look.
apply because
Exactly.
because a lot of people would look at it and say,
Nope.
that's simply not worth my time.
Worth the risk.
Yes.
And remember, it's a
If I'm
risk
at,
thing.
if I'm at 120 now, why do I want to relocate my family and put myself through all of this for 130?
Because it's cold and snowy up here.
Well, that reminds me,
Beautiful.
is there a way that you can screen for people who are using this as an opportunity to increase their desirability at their current job? I won't name someone that we may have offered the job to who decided to stay where he was at.
I can only say I try my best to read and ask and find out the sincerity of candidates.
Because that sure felt like that's what that was.
In every case, I try to find out the sincerity of the candidates because it is very disappointing for the recruiter, for the community, when you have your candidate and they choose not to. So to screen it, we ask.
You got to put the prods on them. Come on.
I need your prods, I guess.
The electric prods I'm talking
Oh,
about.
goodness, go ahead, Tom.
I think when evaluating somebody in a range, and the range can be, some separation of maybe 15 or 20% or something like that from top to bottom, that you can also ask, and I think they can provide you, it's a question you can ask, what they're currently making. And then you can kind of estimate what it would cost for them to make a move, and figure that out and either pay for it separately or, up the pay slightly for that reason. But I think looking at what they're making now is something we might have overlooked. I don't know, because I don't remember talking about it in the past.
Well, I think it was in their information that we got.
Did
It was in
we
the
include
information we got.
relocation costs as part of the package?
We did on the last one.
I thought
We
offered
included that as part of the
$5,000.
offer?
Yeah.
Okay,
I believe that was an individual conversation I had with Commission Chair during process.
Okay.
And that was what you did.
Well, that seems reasonable
We
to
offered
me.
a $5,000
moving.
It was $5,000 moving expenses.
That's very typical for,
And it wasn't a straight 5,000, it was receipt-based, you had to be accountable for
So,
it.
so you're going to shoot us the stuff that you used the last time, right? You're going to shoot us the ask, as it were, the criteria, and also the piece that describes the county, et cetera.
Correct.
And you're hoping to go live with this on the 5th of, it looked like the 5th of February, which would be next week.
So we need a motion.
I am
Well,
ready to go
I'm just,
live when
I'm
you're
just
ready.
trying to
good.
clarify what the process would be if we
All right.
decide to go forward. You would get us that stuff, we would get back with you with any concerns, and then hopefully we could go live with shooting it out there into the
If it's
world.
next week that I get the feedback back,
Yep.
great. If you need one more week to discuss wage or issues, then we go the following week. And then the timeline is shifted.
James, I got a suggestion or just offering. When we are going through the interview process, you were talking first day and then second day. If we did that, but still didn't make a selection on that second day, and just say that we're going to do it a week later, to give us time to get feedback from the public that, so that we aren't sitting here forced to make a decision, or make a decision because it just feels good, we might avoid some issues with the public.
I would say that that's an absolute fine thing to think about. We just had a search where the two candidates were both really well liked, too close, and they did delay a week. But I would encourage you at that point, when we get there, hopefully we've heard the public comment. Hopefully I provided that report before your meeting, so between the public forum and then that next day. And at that point, it really is a conversation among yourself in the public session about those two candidates. And if you need to sleep on it, then you sleep on it for a period of time and come back together. But your goal before you come to that is to gather as much as you can from the outside so that you have the information that you may need that week, but it's because you need to sleep on it, not pull a whole lot more folks in. Hopefully, if we have ideas on how to get their opinion in, let's get that in before that point. But to answer your question directly, Commissioner, yes, take 2 days, take a week.
And then I got a question for Gene. If you remember, or Sonny, when Dennis Aloy was hired, was Ross involved at all?
No.
Okay, so it was just strictly commissioners and...
Just commissioners and the headhunter firm that we hired.
Right, okay.
So,
I think that's one of the things, we touched on just a little bit last week when we talked about the interim thing and whether Chris and Nate were going to do it or how we're going to work that out. I think one of the things that we have to talk about along the way is what the responsibilities of those interim people are going to be, whether it's one person or two persons. And I think the first thing to take off the table is we do not expect the interim person to be any part of this administrative search. That should not be their responsibility. It's our responsibility.
No hiring and
It's
firing
ours and
should be
ours
part of
alone.
that.
Well, yeah.
And probably, no hiring and firing altogether without board consensus. They can do the interview process, they can make recommendations, but the board will make the decisions at least on the interim position. I don't think those guys want the responsibility, and I don't think we should be asking them to do that. They're stepping up on our half.
on the agenda for next week, because then we'll have our legal opinion about how this is going to be possible. Yes?
I agree with Sonny, and I'd also put a codicil on that. Any changes of, rearranging of departments and stuff, that should come to us now. We need to be involved in that
We'll
now.
hash all that out
Yeah.
once we,
I can
confident
probably
of who's gonna
guarantee
be
you
there.
that Nate and Chris are going to tell you they don't have time to mess with that anyway. Just to wrap this up, I'm going to make the motion that we go with GovHR again for the second time for the search for the administrator.
Support.
okay, moved by Commissioner Johnson and supported by Commissioner Klaus. Go ahead,
I
Sonny.
guess the one discussion, and we've touched on it here a couple times tonight, is that 137.50, is that 137 the right number?
Okay, I think we
because-
should get that straight first.
Because I
before
think we do have to make that decision. And, whether we make it tonight or whether we make it next week, it doesn't matter, except James can't do anything until we make that
What's
decision.
the low end of
I
that
think it
scale?
matters.
What's,
114 to 137 is what we advertised
why
before.
don't we say 145?
114 to
We wouldn't
145?
have to go, it just gives us more flexibility.
Dean?
That's $8,000 more than the
What'd you say it was originally, 114 to 137?
Yes.
And we're not going to get anybody for 114.
So why don't we go 125 to 145?
You could tighten that range up, because if someone came in for 114,
We don't want them.
you're getting in over the
Sonny
head.
is suggesting 120 to 145.
I like it.
My suggestion would be
Like that?
120
Well,
to
let's get-
145. But
Okay. I
we
like
can't, the problem is, we can do it if you want to do it. We can vote on the motion that you have tonight that we have before us to contract with GovHR to redo the search. But before we adjourn tonight, I think we need to evaluate that salary number.
Yeah, and my motion right now is just to go with them. I think after we go, and if, I assume this is going to get approved, then let's talk about if we're going to wait an extra week and
Okay.
discuss that, because I
Okay.
agree we need to discuss it.
So we want to, do you have something on whether or not to go with GovHR?
No, I have something
Okay.
on this motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you just want to call the question on that, or?
Well, Bob, would you consider changing your motion to deciding on the meeting of the 7th?
No,
No?
no, I'm ready to
I
go.
think we should decide whether to go with James or
I think even
not
if we went
today.
with, number one, if we went with somebody else, you've really expanded what we've got to do.
You've
It's
added
gonna
at
cost
least-
us more.
You've added at least a month.
And I can almost guarantee we're gonna have the same core candidates apply, because they're gonna probably advertise in the same locations. So,
Dan?
you know.
I'm interested in why you want to wait till the 7th.
Well, because I get a lot of feedback that we hurry, so.
Well, I think this part of it,
No.
we can go ahead with, the rest of it is where we don't need to hurry. Yeah, I
All
think this part
we're doing is getting the process started.
is
That's not a
hiring
hurry.
James.
Well,
That's-
and it's
yeah.
truly not starting the process, because we already contracted with GovHR to do this search for us, and one of the conditions of their contract with us is if it didn't work for 24 months, they would come back and do it over again. So
We're a
we're
third of
just
the way
simply
in already.
reauthorizing the enactment of the warranty, if you will, on the process that we've already paid for.
Okay,
Call the
and we do
question.
agree
Okay.
that before we do more advertising, we'll look at the costs, because we'd have to pay that, it's not part of the warranty, right? Yeah.
We're
We're going to talk about that after we do the
Let's-
motion.
Let's vote.
Let's vote on this one first.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You're with us now, better or for worse.
Thank you.
It's you.
I will have to you in very short order with the old wage included, and you can read through it, and the old dates will still be there. I'm just going to pop those two in, right in. We'll start working on the back end to make some of the changes I know will occur, but I want to get those to you. You'll have them this evening. With regard to the wage, you guys have your conversation. Give me any feedback. I will suggest a deadline of Monday to have that reviewed, unless I hear that you're going to meet again to talk about wage, then
I think we should talk about wage today.
you
There's no
work
reason we
through that.
can't do it right now.
Yeah, we're
No,
here.
I
mean,
think we can do
yeah.
that. James, if I could, before you run off, can you give me an idea what the advertising and expenses will be? A range, or am I looking at $20,000, or am I looking
Oh,
at,
gosh.
you know?
Right. Last time, we had, our advertising budget was 2,500, and we came really close to it, within $100. So if we add a couple more advertisements, you're looking at less than 3,000 on advertising. I think our cap on expenses was $8,000, and we were significantly less than that. I'd have to look back at the invoices, but I think we ended up closer to, that was what our not to exceed amount was, and I think we'll be less than that. I think it will include the same number of trips as last time, even though I'm not doing the front end, but I'm planning at least 2 more trips on the back end. So that's to
So
give you an
basically,
idea.
what we're projecting is a cost to the county approximately $10,000
Call it 10,000.
in advertising and travel.
And then also, if you want to try and get that number together, cost for bringing your candidates in,
Right.
which we took care of last time, and I would strongly suggest you do again, and cost, that'll be one more time on that. I can provide an estimate on those expenses, but I think that range that you started at, 10 to 15,000, is a very fair, conservative range.
Well, at least in my mind, I'm comfortable with the idea that we're going to be in that $10,000 to $15,000 range. That I don't think that's a number that shocks me, at least, to go through this process. I
And keep
just-
in mind, it will go up if we ask more candidates to come in, depending on where
Absolutely.
they're at, but that's,
Absolutely.
But
Right,
the
that's just the
point
cost of
was,
doing it.
we have, the point of the discussion was the fact that we know that the warranty from GovHR takes care of the process, but we're responsible for travel and advertising. So I just wanted to publicly have a discussion about what that dollar amount was without anybody being surprised by that.
So can I clarify, the warranty that we have is from the first hire, correct? In other words, when we hire the next one, does our 2 years start over again?
Actually, I had thought of that too. so-
I'm just putting it out there.
I appreciate that, and the warranty is to come in and do an additional recruitment.
Okay.
That is what the warranty is for. If this recruitment doesn't go well within the 2-year period, we will have a conversation again, but that wasn't the contract that was signed originally.
Okay.
Okay?
Just got to
It's
make
like-
sure we're all on the same
Yeah, I
page,
know.
guys.
See, it's like Harbor
So-
Freight.
Oh,
You buy the
gosh.
warranty, it's good for that one tool, not
There you
when
go.
you
Not the
re-get
next
the new-
tool
not
that
the
you
next
have to
tool
have it
you get.
There you
replaced.
go.
So,
I have a lot of those
What
from
it-
Granger, too.
Salary.
what do people talk, yes, let's talk about the salary range.
I like Sunny's suggestion.
I would
120 to
like to,
145?
I would like to suggest that we publish the salary for the county administrator range between 120 and 145.
Support.
Oh, are you making a motion?
Yes, he is.
Sure, why not?
Okay, moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet.
I think that's a realistic number, and, you know, I think there has to be enough distance between the administrator and, if you will, the
Everybody else.
highest paid county employee other than that. There should be a difference between.
That's right, it's not just the deputy,
It's not just the deputy, it's the,
It's a prosecutor, it's
The sheriff, the
well,
prosecutor.
those are elected, those
so
are
that's a little
elected
different,
officials, so you
but
can't
still.
necessarily talk about
Okay.
those, but you
No.
can talk about your IT director, your planning
Okay.
directors, your, you know,
There is
all of those.
supposed to
things.
be an appreciable
You know,
difference.
The health director and.
Usually
Yeah.
20% difference between the next person down.
So would that be 145 plus benefits?
Yes.
Yes,
just
145 would be
salary.
the salary if this person was just knocked
And
it out of the park.
medical and retirement and
Right.
all of those things.
Right.
And again, just because we advertise the range at 120 to 145, doesn't mean that I'm going to offer 145 to the first candidate that we select.
No,
And Carol isn't either.
no, I'm not. Nope.
We
because
learned
I'm
a
gonna-
lot at
I'm
this
going to
last
take a lot of suggestions from everybody as to what you think that person we're hiring should make. Absolutely, absolutely.
The only thing I guess, you know,
Do we want to vote on that first? or
well,
you
no,
still on
I'm
that?
talking about
Okay.
this.
All right.
Is, you know, I'd like Dean's input as to, I know it's not a whole lot extra money, is that, you know, it's not gonna push us over the edge on the budget and everything else, and
Are we good, Dean?
I kinda like Dean's
We're good.
blessing on it, so.
You know, I think it's a
did this.
reasonable amount.
Yeah, like I said, I really think for the amount of people they're supervising, that our pay was pretty low. Especially compared to, and I know it's hard to compare to industry, but it really is.
You know, the idea that we add $10,000 to the top of it, if it brings us one or two more qualified candidates, I'm all
Worth it.
excited about that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
You know, I
It might
truly am.
inch us into a slightly different pool.
Me too.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well,
Any
do we need a
opposed? Wait,
roll call with that since it was money?
I guess-
or-
no.
I
it's
got a final comment, though.
Okay,
Do we want to do a little more research in making a comparison with some other counties?
no.
We did a look, how long ago was that?
About a year
We
and a
did
half.
elected officials, though, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
About a year
I
and a
don't know
half
if
ago.
I don't think it included that, but.
No, but.
And we, with elected officials, if I remember,
Different.
if memory serves me right, we were in about the middle range to the top on most of those, so we,
No, you weren't, well,
Well, it depended on, it
I know it
was, it
depends
wasn't
on what-
an
Grand
overall.
Traverse is so unique. Our SCV is so much higher than
Yeah.
the ones you compared to, but
and that's the problem.
It's
is
hard to find
it's hard
comparables.
Leelanau
to
County
compare.
makes more than our elected officials here.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, the problem is trying to identify what are the comparables.
Yeah.
Because we are such a unique
And
community.
it is hard to compare because the qualifications and the duties of their county administrator might be vastly different than what we're asking for. So it is hard, just like even with commissioners. Some commissioners have one meeting a month, some have four. So, I mean, it's hard to be comparable with the comparables.
None of the rest of them getting paid $1.
That wasn't my point. But,
and they could potentially have, what, 6, 7 months of dealing with the 7 of us, so that might be worth a little
hazard
extra,
pay.
so.
All right, let's try to vote on that again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, James, you have your salary range. Are there any other decisions or things that we need to talk about this evening before James just starts this
And we're
process
going to
again.
see a packet as far as the interim for our next week's meeting, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe we will have, Jean has an answer for you. Yes, thank you, Jean. I believe we'll have a legal opinion by then, and they will have worked some things out.
Remember at the Gender Review Committee, we said we'd have that on
Yes.
Friday, but we will not have the complete scope for you on Wednesday.
Okay.
Because we want to have a complete package for you, so you can have, the duties and responsibilities for the two, and we also want to have the wage for you, so you have the full, complete package.
And it won't be ready for next Wednesday?
If you want it to be on your table, possibly, but as I said, we doubt it.
Okay, so how do we want
We don't
it?
know what time the opinion's going to come in, Carol. It could come
Yeah.
in late.
Okay.
And Chris?
If it's on our
and Nate-
desk, that's fine.
Is everybody okay with, if
I
it's
don't
on our
think-
desk? we
If it's
can-
on our desk and we're not prepared to act on it,
Then
we
we'll
just
wait.
simply hold another meeting or
Or
we'll wait.
hold another meeting,
We
because
can hold a
as
special the next week.
I indicated, there's, you want to identify who your new facilities manager is and resource recovery manager.
Yeah.
So you'll probably have to have a special meeting.
So that second Wednesday in February, we might have to have another special.
Correct.
To just get these things rolling.
Correct.
That's possible. That's acceptable. Okay. So, yes, Tom?
On the subject of interim county administrator, I would suggest that we not have it be a shared job, and that Nate Alger be the interim county administrator, and that Chris Forsyth be the deputy interim county administrator.
I think
So
what we
you-
were waiting for was
yeah.
the legal opinion as to which one would be able to be.
Right, I get
the-
that.
The first, because
So I would
somebody
say-
does have to be the top one.
I would add then
for
pending,
signature period
pending the legal
purposes.
decision that I'm not under the belief that sharing the job is the best way to handle it. I think they should actually have separate designations.
Mm-hmm.
Be much simpler for everyone to understand.
Well, and that also depends on if they feel they're able to do that, because I
How
mean,
they
they do
work
have
it
their
out.
other jobs to do, so,
And I think
yeah,
that's
It'll be
what,
interesting
it'll
to
be-
see
we'll
what they
flush it
come
out.
I think
up with.
that's that whole package that we
that's
have
what
to have a
Jean was
discussion
talking
about.
about, that they have to discuss how they would like to split it up among themselves, how it's going to work best for them, to do what we need them to do.
Yeah, it ought to be their way.
What's that?
I say it ought to be their way.
Absolutely, because they're stepping up out of their jobs because I've talked a little bit to Nate and Chris, because they care, and they want to do this for us, because they don't want to see us backtrack and keep us right here and keep us level, and
I think it's
So we
pretty-
do what we need to do.
I think it's pretty impressive, really.
absolutely, that good qualified people are going to step up to help us out, absolutely.
Once
We
again,
have
Grand
those.
Traverse County employees are stepping
Pardon?
up. Once again, Grand Traverse County employees are stepping up.
Absolutely, absolutely they are. Okay, do you have enough direction from us, James, at the moment? Okay. Anything else? We
I
are
have,
going- Yes,
I
sir.
have one comment that has nothing to do with this,
Okay.
and I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't have the list. The agenda, the calendar she sent out for the agenda of meetings,
Yes,
I will be out of town on the first one that I have, that Thursday.
okay. I'm sure Chris is
At 9
listening.
a.m.
Okay.
So I
moved it
need
to
to see if
Tuesday.
someone can swap with me.
Oh, there you go. Tom will swap
All
with
right,
you.
because I
Get with
think you were
Tom.
I asked Cheryl, and she said she wasn't going to be here, so
That's correct.
What's the
People
date?
go on vacation.
I'd have to look
Believe
at
that.
it. I think it's the 19th or something like that.
It might have been the 20th.
I have to go to every single
Depending
one
on
of them,
what
so
that
I
is.
didn't look
I'd
at
just say
Here,
who's
let me, I'll tell you
assigned.
real quick.
Tentatively a
But yeah.
yes, though.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
guys can work that out, and that's fine. We have to
second
go
public
to,
comment?
yes, we have to have second public comment.
February 22nd.
Anybody out there have any public comments today? No? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.